Welcome back to the Andrea Giovino Show, and today we're going to jump right into felons that are incarcerated, and when they come out, how do they enter back into society?
So that's a tough thing because as we know, we both know a lot of
A
felons.
lot of felons.
And in the business that I'm in, which is construction, there's been a lot of criminals that have throughout the years, a lot of criminals get involved in construction, and when they get out of prison, if they don't have certain skill sets, a lot of times it's construction labor or certain construction skills that they've had at different times, and reintegrating them back into society is could sometimes be challenging depending on the individual. So,
A lot of them go back and repeat those crimes because it is hard for them to fit into society, and it is easier for them to be a criminal, whether it's drug dealing, heisting, loan sharking, whatever the crime they committed, robbery, armed robbery.
So these days it's even harder if someone is a felon to get a job, even in my business. Even if I wanted to hire, say, a felon, it's even more difficult because in my type of business, I have to have guys criminal background checked and pre-screened before we let them into certain job sites or into certain homeowners' homes. So depending on what their criminal background is, I may not be able to hire them. I may not legitimately be able to get them through my own company because my own company has to go through background checks.
If you mean it would, whatever the whatever felony crime they were committed,
and how long it's been. Yes. So even though, say, I own my own construction company, I work for much bigger companies.
Right.
I work for national or international companies. And what ends up happening is the workers need to be criminal background checked. So for certain jobs, if someone is a violent felon, that's usually a no-no, even if the violent felony goes back to the 20, 30 years ago.
or robbery.
So robbery is a different thing. So robbery for me as a business owner is a huge red flag because if somebody's a thief, I don't have to have the liability and concern that they're going to go in someone's house and potentially steal something. If their background is that of theft. So therefore, whether I could get them through the background checks or not, that's usually, even if it's a misdemeanor. If it's a misdemeanor robbery, they're usually not going to get through with my company because I don't want to stick them in someone's home. Violent crimes.
Probably.
I've known a lot of violent offenders throughout the years that, I know changed their lives around. I know, wouldn't be a threat in anyone's home because it's been so many years, and let's say it was something that they did when they were younger. And I have had, different guys throughout the years work for me. Now my business is a little more stricter, so I'm able to say this openly. But I would say maybe a decade ago, I was much more open because I was comfortable with these types of people because, I grew up in and around these types of people. So violent criminals, as long as they weren't being violent to me or my people or my customers, there were no issues. And there were no issues.
But there are also a lot of white-collar crimes that go into companies and extort,
Yes.
for instance.
Yes.
That happens a lot.
Yes.
With white-collar crimes.
Yes. So I'll tell you the type of crime that I've been willing to overlook throughout the years. Those that are, say, DUIs or those that are drug crimes.
Okay.
Because the drug crime doesn't necessarily equate to a violent individual. It also does not equate to someone that is going to steal in someone's home. So that's something that I've been a little bit more tolerant to. If somebody changed their life around, if they're looking to work construction, they're not dealing drugs now, and they don't have a background of, say, robberies or violent crimes or sex crimes. That's, again, one of the worst. Then, what is the actual crime that they have on their rap sheet to determine whether or not they could even come and work for my company or even other companies. It's difficult for a felon when they get out, because we're just talking about construction right now and in my business, but there's so many businesses, when you have that little tarnish on your record, yeah, it really
it stops them from being able. It makes it hard for them to be able to come out and live a normal life, to get a job, unless they know somebody that can help them to get a job. And not everybody knows somebody.
And in my situation, I knew some of the people that got out of prison. I knew them closely and personally.
So you know.
So I was very comfortable, for the most part, having them in people's homes.
Right.
But if you don't know them, you really don't know what you're going to get. And you could end up getting, you know, a violent, dangerous person, somebody that's willing to cross the line. You know, not just.
But like you said, not just you, but you working for bigger companies, you have to give a clearance, don't you?
Yes. So
or get a clearance.
So these days, so I'm going back in time a little bit. These days, I mean, we're talking 2025. A lot of the big companies that I have to work with, you can't even get these people to get background check to be legitimately able to step foot into a customer's house, because there's requirements these days to work for some of these, you know, bigger companies. So it just, the point of this is it just makes it much more difficult for someone that does get that tarnish and that blemish on their record as a felon. You know, it's choose a career path as young as possible, stick with it, move forward in a positive direction. That's the best thing you could do.
I know, but it's very hard, because when these kids, like inner city kids, and they don't have anybody guiding them, and that's why there needs to be so much help for them.
Yes.
To guide them. What are they going to, like, gear toward?
And some of these young kids, some of these young guys, they cop out to felonies because they don't have a good attorney.
Because they don't have them. They don't have the money. They don't have the money to pay.
Sometimes the crimes don't even fit.
I know that.
The word felony.
Yeah.
But they'll cop out to a felony. They won't get a lot of time, say, because that's the best offer.
But then that's on their record forever.
That's the best offer being given to them. So they take the felony.
Right.
They don't take a lot of time. But that felony creates a whole different issue
for their
problems
life
for the rest of their life.
Because it doesn't come off.
It carries with them.
It carries with them, and that's basically, you know, their life is totally ruined.
So let's just use marijuana as an example, okay? A few years ago, somebody gets locked up so many times, and they got marijuana charges or gambling charges. Like there's
marijuana charges that have gotten felons. You're a felon, and now it's legal.
Yes.
That I feel should come off the people's record.
Yes, and this is the type of thing that I'm talking about. Like for me, all right, if someone got locked up for marijuana, that doesn't necessarily make them a violent individual. It doesn't make them an individual that's dealing heroin out on the streets. You know, so can certain things be looked past? Yeah. Is that individual still someone that may cross a certain line legally? You do have to open your eyes to that. But the reality of it is, no one's perfect at the end of the day. You know, we're all sinners. We all do something wrong at some point in our lives. You know, how do you look past certain things, look at certain things, and say, okay, you know, this guy is a potential candidate for somebody that's changing their life. He's going to do a good job, and let's give this guy a shot. You know, but you can't always do that. Now, let's step out of the work field, integrating into families, which I know, you know about it. You know, they get out of prison, and now they need to integrate back into that family life with their wives, their children. That's a whole nother animal.
It's very hard for them, because now you have to remember they're incarcerated with men. Men are very rough, very rugged. Now to come home, and I've interviewed men on my show about this topic also. It's very hard for them to come in and come home and be that sensitive, caring dad, husband. It's very, very hard for them, because now they have to go into a whole nother role of their personality. Because let's face it, when you're incarcerated, you're always looking over your back. You're always flight or fight. Like you're always in that fight mode because you have to protect yourself. Even when you're sleeping, you're not at ease. You're never at ease. Come home and try to incorporate that in a family is very difficult. A lot of them have a lot of anger issues.
Life after incarceration.
They need a lot of therapy.
Is a work in progress.
It's a work in progress.
And we've seen this over and over again.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, it's life after incarceration is a major work in progress with not just work, but with the family, with friends. I would say not as much with friends. How
to fit into your family again. I feel it should be mandatory at least a month of family therapy, like at least 1 month going, once or twice a week with the spouse and the children, to fit in and hear from an outside professional how to be a good how to fit in and have some tools for them, because they come out with no tools. They don't know how to be a gentle husband or a good father or a gentle father. Yeah, they miss their family, but it's very hard for them.
Well, it's kind of like this, if you grow up around all police officers and firefighters,
right,
and those are all your friends and your family, and that's what you want to do, and that's what you want to aspire to be and become. Or if you have a family full of lawyers or doctors, and you say one day, I want to be a doctor, and that's what you're surrounded upon. When you come from a family, say, of criminals, or you're a criminal yourself, and now you're incarcerated with criminals that are always scheming and plotting, even while they're in prison, because that's a whole nother, thing of scheming, plotting, and crime still going on while they're in prison. That's what they're surrounded by all day.
Yeah, but then if they come home and within your own family there are other criminals that are making money, quick money and fast money on the streets, you're already down the rabbit hole.
That's the temptation, and that's the rabbit hole that unfortunately we see many people have to make that decision of which path they're going to take. Are they going to go left or right?
Right.
They go left. They're possibly ending up right back where they started back in prison.
And I've seen that happen.
Or dead.
Or I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
They go right back.
Yeah.
They don't know how to go the straight but to go the straight arrow, take that straight road. They think it's the hard road, but in the end it really is the easier road, because you're losing years of your life. You're losing time with your family, whether you're married or not married, even your siblings or your mom. If you have a wife and kids, you're not seeing them grow up. You're missing all of those things, and that's the hard road, I feel. Or
even we've seen situations where a family member dies and they can't even go to their own parents' funeral.
Their parents, exactly. And there's no way you're getting out of that. Once you're in and they own you, you're that number.
So life after incarceration is a change, and some people are hopefully going to change for the better, and other people are going to go right back to what they know, and that's the crime in the streets.
And that's repeated offenders.
Yeah,
those are career criminals. They know nothing.
And we've seen it over and over again.
Oh my God, yeah.
With family and friends, but we have seen people in our families change their lives around
and do good
and do well and run successful businesses and step away from that street life.
Right.
I mean, we've seen it. It's doable. It's 100% attainable.
It's definitely doable.
It's just a matter of what road people decide to go down.
But then again, those family members had help.
Yes.
They've had help.
Yes.
If you don't have help and you're coming out and you don't have anybody but going back into an inner city and all your friends out there are criminals, the temptation is there.
It's more difficult, I would say, for that person.
It's so hard for them.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard for them. So I feel they should implement other programs for the family and for the inmate to interact, opposed to just throwing them out and letting them go fend. because a lot of them have major anger issues, and then they fight in the house with the wife and they get violated or whatever. So before that happens,
I think there should be a solid career path, whatever that career may be. It could just be general labor. It could be, working anything, a cash register, or
Right.
it could be going back to school to become a doctor. Whatever it may be, there should be a path and a plan. So,
well, for the young guys, I definitely love, for young guys, like in their 20s, and they made a mistake and they come out 20s, even 30s, they have their whole life ahead of them. Go to an alternative school. Every college has alternative schools, programs. Hey, being a plumber, being an electrician, they make great money. Being a carpenter, they make great money. Like all these alternative programs to, show them the road, because a lot of them, they don't know how to find that road. A lot of them really need somebody to walk them to that road and say, this is this, the county or the state will pay for this for you. And then maybe get a company like yours to hire them and help them to get there.
for some people, it's difficult because
I know they have halfway houses, but
here's the thing: if someone's already been away from their family, say for a few years,
Yeah.
or a couple of years, whatever that time may be, they're already away from their family for that point in time.
Yes.
To now say I'm going to go to school for another X amount of time, it's not that simple. It's not. So it would be more ideal if there were more programs already in the institutions or somehow involved with the institutions to educate before release, so there's more opportunity for these individuals to change their lives around and not go back down that same path they went down, whether it be drugs, robbery, whatever. That's what I think would be more beneficial, to not see the reincarceration.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's help. They need help.
Yeah, we all need help. I mean,
Yeah,
listen,
and
when I
everybody-
started my business, I needed a little bit of help. I remember I came to you for money and a
Right.
business proposal to,
Start.
get a business started.
You were young.
and we both put money in together, and we got a business started.
Right.
So I think, maybe everybody needs a little bit of help once in a while.
Everybody needs a little bit of help, and there is help out there. I mean, if you go and you ask and you want, there is help out there. But I think that we'll close out with
Yeah.
this. And thank you. Tune in. Please subscribe. That's what keeps us going. And thank you,
that-
Jesus.
Hit
We'll
that-
see you next time.
Hit that subscribe
Bye.
button. God bless.
God bless. We off camera?